we adore and worship Yahweh, the only one. We don't adore ancestral spirits. We don't worship idols of animals, trees, stones, the sun, the stars, or the moon, which Yahweh has made.
Colonial era. The initial encounters between Native Americans and non-natives occurred at different times in different places in present-day North America. The Hopi of Arizona and the Huron of eastern Canada both experienced encounters with Europeans by about 1540. The Lakota of the Plains did not experience first-hand knowledge of them until the late 1600s. The Wintu of Northern California and Yungan of Alaska's Aleutian Islands encountered Europeans over 100 years later in the mid-1700s. Spain, which considered Native Americans pagans and inferior, held a region known as New Spain that extended down the Pacific coast from Vancouver Island to the tip of South America in the inland, as far east as the Mississippi River, including the Florida Peninsula, St. Augustine, Florida. A permanent settlement was established in 1565. Santa Fe, New Mexico was found in 1610. During the late 16th century, the Spanish moved into southwestern lands for wealth, converts, and slaves, and ruled there until 1821. Since Indians were forced to labor in their mines, ranches, farms, and public works, they were not driven from their territories. While the Spanish crown exploited their labor, missionaries carried on large-scale efforts to convert their souls. Hostility developed between the Spanish and the Apache and Pueblo peoples. The harsh rule of some Spanish governors, plus religions and economic oppression, led to an allied Pueblo-Apache revolt against the Spanish Empire in northern New Spain. The 1680 Pueblo revolt was ended by Spanish counteroffensives in 1692. Native hostility persisted until Spain was forced to abandon her colonies in the 1820s. France. The French, who were the most congenial to native peoples, also believed native peoples to be pagan and inferior. The French in Canada were primarily interested in dominating the fur trade, which required minuscule amounts of land. They developed no permanent settlements in the interior and farmed little of mainland Canada. The French depended on the friendship of Indian trappers and go-betweens. Both sides benefiting from the reciprocal economic relationship, they became absorbed in native life, adopting its customs and dress, learning native languages, and intermarrying. New France extended west of the Appalachian Mountains to the Mississippi River and south from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico. Quebec was founded in 1608. New Netherland. The colony of New Netherland was established by the Dutch West India Company in 1624 and grew to encompass all of present-day New York City and parts of Long Island, Connecticut, and New Jersey. A successful Dutch settlement in the colony grew up on the southern tip of Manhattan Island and was christened New Amsterdam. Since the Netherlands hungered at first for furs, the Dutch negotiated with native peoples for small pieces of land for trading posts and villages. As the furs were depleted in coastal areas by the 1630s, the Dutch turned to agriculture and used force and cajolery to acquire larger chunks of Indian land. The popular myth that the Lenape sold New York City to Dutch Governor Peter Minuit for $24 is just that, a myth. In 1626, the Lenape signed a lease agreement which allowed Dutch settlers to share their territory. But the Dutch assumed they owned the land outright and renamed Lenape lands New Amsterdam. Beginning in 1641, a protracted war was founded between the colonists and the Lenape, resulted in the death of more than 1,000 Indians and Dutch settlers. In 1664, New Amsterdam passed to English control. England. The English colonists differed from the Spanish and French. After the founding of Jamestown, Virginia, in 1607 and Plymouth, Massachusetts, in 1620, English families came to stay and to transplant their own ideas of civilization in the New World. The colonists had little use for native peoples, who they perceived as savages and devil worshippers, and nuisances who blocked the growth of the English-speaking world. The English wanted their lands for farming, although some were involved with fur trading. English agricultural practices destroyed native traditional economies and forced tribes to move away or convert to the English lifestyle. Since the British Crown was unable to enforce uniform policy and regulations, treatments of Indians varied wildly in the British colonies, which eventually fought with each other as well as with the Crown over Indian land, acquisition and trade policies, and defense. In an effort to gain control over all relations between Indians and non-Indians throughout the colonies in the mid-18th century, the British Crown put Indians' affairs under the control of Indian superintendents in the newly created Northern and Southern departments. Lawless traders and others who moved into restricted Indian territories interfered with the effectiveness of the system. Russia established claims to land along the North Pacific coast beginning in the 1740s. Throughout its tenure in North America, Russians enslaved and forced Aleut Unigan men to hunt furs, children to prepare the hides, and women to become concubines. Russia established a permanent settlement in 1783 on Kodiak Island to control the native people, whom they bullied and tortured. From 1812 to 1841, Russians maintained a fort in Bodega Bay, California. Finally, in 1867, when Russia ceded Alaska to the United States, its rule in North America ended. Sweden. A Swedish colony was established in what is now Delaware in 1638 by Peter Minuit, a German native of French extraction and former governor of New Amsterdam. The New Sweden Company had been chartered to create an agricultural, primarily tobacco, and fur trading colony which would bypass the French, English, and Dutch. The colonists established farms and small settlements along both sides of the Delaware River. The Swedes purchased lands which would later become the states of Delaware and Maryland, and a portion of Pennsylvania which would become Philadelphia.